Hello, mixtresses and mixters. This is mixtressrae. You're watching Mixtress Video. First of all, can you see this item right here? So you can't see the full scope of it right now on the tripod, but this is a circular table. Okay, forget the shaky cam. I'm gonna lift you up so you can get the full scope of it. Look at this. Do you see this? Oh my god. I am obsessed. I've wanted like a beautiful hand-carved wooden table like this since the first time I ever saw one. My roommate that I started living with in 2007. So when she moved in, she had it for like ever. It's this great like two-piece, like the top comes off and the legs like fold together. Fold in and collapse. It's kind of hard to put together again if you take it apart. It's not like a super easy take down and put up situation. It's easy to take down, just not easy to put back up. But I saw one today at a place. We have like, I live in this really small town. We're like 50,000 people, something like that. And we don't really have, there is one witchy shop in town that we've gotten pretty recently, but it's kind of terrible in my opinion. The person, the like proprietor, isn't very nice. And anyway, so we just got a new one, and it's called Christine's Curiosities. And I went there today for the first time. They just opened a few weeks ago and I hadn't been able to go yet. And yeah, they had this awesome table and I just like freaked out. And I will say it was kind of expensive. However, it's a hand-carved table. And I was just thinking about it. It costs less than several tarot decks that I've bought before. So it costs less than an indie tarot deck. So I'd say that's a great purchase. Anyway, I wanted to just immediately do some kind of video with it. So here we are. I'm going to do an unfair comparisons of two Lo Scarabeo decks that came out the same year. So they both came out in 2009, I believe. So this is Tarot of the Dream Enchantress and Tarot of the Sweet Twilight. So Tarot of the Sweet Twilight I've had for a few months. I do think this is kind of a fair comparison. Like the art style is completely different. However, so I'll flip this over so you guys can just see the backs while I'm babbling here. However, I feel like the vibe is somewhat similar. Like they both are like kind of cheesy art styles. Tarot of the Sweet Twilight is a little bit more surreal, and Tarot of the Dream Enchantress is a little bit more like comic book style, kind of. They both sort of like have a feel to them that's more 90s, I would say. Both of them feel more like mid-90s decks, even though they both came out in 2009. But they're both hand-drawn decks, I believe. So it's possible that it took the artists, a while to complete these. This is still 2009. It's still kind of back in the era when people spent a lot of time creating tarot decks. And to be honest with you, lately I've been having the thought that almost the older a deck is, the more well thought out it is, because the older a deck is, the more likely someone spent more time creating it. And I'm finding just even 2009 wasn't that long ago, but still, even just back that far, people weren't churning out decks like every 2 seconds. So anyway, I am burning a Nag Champa incense in my tiny closet today, and Nag Champas are intense. My eyes are already watering a little bit. Okay, let's get into it. Ooh, I love this table so much. I use Like, Michael's like, I don't know if you should be doing that, but it hasn't ever been bad. I use like ritual oil to, like, when I have ritual wooden objects like this, like some of my hand carved stuff, I will like use ritual oil and just like rub it into the wood. Not stuff that's like pure essential oil or anything. It's like, you know, mixed with like almond oil stuff. So it smells really good. And that's just my way of like cleansing it and making it mine. Oh my God. I'm just like, I feel so special having this table. I was so jealous of my roommate, her table, that I was always like subtly hinting at like, if you ever decide to get rid of that table. But now I have my own. Watch, she'll like be like, you know what? I'm thinking about getting rid of that table. She'll like tell me that like tomorrow. So the art, like I said, the art styles are completely different. And these two decks. I don't know why I'm displaying this lighter here, but whatever. Okay, I need to scoot in a little bit closer to the tripod, try not to bump it. The Tarot of the Dream Enchantress, this is the one I just got, like a few days ago. It has only women. No, I guess there are a few men, but the men are only on cards that have women on them too, I believe. I'm not even sure like what to say about, like, I have been working with Tarot of the Sweet Twilight for a few months, but I really haven't worked much with Tarot of the Dream Enchantress. I have spent a lot of time like looking through it and kind of shuffling it and then putting it back in order, and you know, like, I've been kind of playing with it, but not really. Like, so far, anytime I've attempted to do a reading with Tarot of the Dream Enchantress, again, I've had it like 3 days, but every time I've attempted to do a reading with it, it hasn't really worked out. And some of it is because there are some, we haven't really gotten to any of them yet, but there are some really different interpretations of some of the cards in Tarot of the Dream Enchantress, to such an extent that I kind of wonder if the artist is really, he definitely created the art to go with the deck. Again, I'm talking about Dream Enchantress. The artist's name on that one is Marco Nizzoli, and the artist on Tarot of the Sweet Twilight is Christina Benintende. To such an extent that I feel like in some cases, he didn't necessarily know the meaning of the card, because I can't tell what he's saying. Like, in some of the cards with Tarot of the Sweet Twilight, it's definitely a different interpretation of the card, but you can tell they're coming from a knowledge base of knowing the card and just deciding to do a slightly different take on it, if that makes sense. But sometimes with Tarot of the Dream Enchantress, I'm like, I don't know how to connect this at all. Which, again, I've had the deck for 3 days, so it is possible that I will figure out how to work with it with some of that imagery that I don't right off the bat understand, which we haven't gotten to any of those yet. So I love the art style of both of these, though, in their own ways. I think maybe this one was done, Tarot of the Dream Enchantress, with like watercolors maybe some of the time, whereas this one might be maybe colored pencils. I could see possibly. They both use strength as 11 and justice as 8. And they're both low Scarabeo decks, so you can get them both for like, you know, 20, 25 bucks max. I kind of love this, sort of like death carries you throughout your entire life. It's just a part of you. Love this Temperance. Both of these Temperance cards I love, but I especially love getting to know this one right now, because this little guy looks like a ferret to me. And I do so love a ferret. The colors in Terror of the Sweet Twilight, like, you know, if I'm comparing them in like what I like about them, I like the colors in Terror of Sweet Twilight overall a little bit more, just because they're deeper, more jewel tones, more warm tones. But the color scheme in, especially right now on screen, this is looking really, really good. The line work is much more detailed, obviously, in Tarot of the Dream Enchantress. See, like here, this is a different take on the tarot card, on the Tower card, because you're looking from this perspective of being up on the branch, being kind of above it all, being kind of removed from it. Is what I mean by like Tarot of the Sweet Twilight sometimes has alternative interpretations of the cards. Once we get into the minors with Tarot of the Dream Enchantress, it's hard to say. Just as a warning to you guys, there's a lot of nudity. There was like a little bit so far in the majors, but it gets a little bit more intense in the minors. A little bit. I mean, intense. I mean, I will just say I did have to add pubic hair to a few cards, but I did decide to try not to be so close-minded about that. Like, I just don't like seeing bald crotches, so I did not add pubic hair to all of the cards in Dream Enchantress, but I did some. This one is actually not one of the ones that I added it. It was like that, but I will point it out when I've added it, so you know that it's not the way that it comes in the box. Interesting that they both chose similar, like, I don't think I have any other tarot decks that choose to interpret the Ace of Wands as being a tree. So that's interesting. And they both have like different sort of Two of Wands too. Like this one's like, doesn't really matter what you choose, death is always the end. And this one's more just like a vision quest kind of card. There are a lot of cards in Tarot of the Dream Enchantress that I'm gonna have to spend some time with to decide, like, because this reminds me of a Seven of Swords or a Five, but it's a Five of Wands. So there's just a lot, and this one reminds me of a Six of, there are like 10 cards, maybe not quite that many, but like maybe 5 in Tarot of the Dream Enchantress that every time I look at them, I think it's a Six of Cups. Like, I think this is a Six of Cups, but it isn't. It's a Six of Wands. And so the only connection that I've been able to make so far is maybe because she has this tambourine and it's kind of a wreath shape. But this just like looks like bondage to the, like, looks like bear bondage to me. It looks like slavery or something. I don't know. I don't like it. This one, again, looks like a Six of Cups to me. I do not get Seven of Wands from that. So I think there's going to be there's some cards that I'm going to really struggle with in Dream Enchantress, but it's one of those things where, like, I mean, it could go one of two ways, right? But it is likely that because I'm so intrigued by the art and I'm kind of challenged by some of the imagery, that I might be able to like work through it. I can just like never have, seems like, you know, like even though I'm really trying to cut back for the most part, this was one that I kind of like treated myself to because I had like a really good month as far as like my tarot Etsy shop. And I was like, I am going to go ahead and buy myself this deck because I've been thinking about it for a little bit and I'm just going to go for it. But even though like I'm trying to like not acquire so many decks. It doesn't seem like I personally have very much of a limit on like fantasy decks. Like I don't feel like, you know, I only need to have 2. Like as far as like fantastical decks, like that's my vibe. That's what I like. Look at her. Oh wait, I got this backwards, didn't I? Yes, I did. Knave versus knave. Knight versus knight. There we go. 2 Queen of Wands with no black cat. Just have to point it out. All of the kings in this deck in Tarot of the Dream Enchantress are wearing masks. This one's just like so fucking phallic to me. Like we have this explosion of water going into like the cave crevice. Like there are just a few, there are several cards in Tarot of the Dream Enchantress that are just a little bit too, like almost bordering on pornographic to me, which like I say that like it is a negative for me, but I'm not, you know, I'm not saying that it should not exist or anything like that. Like I'm not a prude, I'm just ace, that's all. I love both of these 2 of Cups, particularly this one in Dream Enchantress. I mean, look at them. That just looks like, that is what love looks like to me, is just that, like, picnic in fall. Just one of those, just, oh, beautiful. This one's great, too. I love this one. Similar vibe to me. Hanging out with her squirrel friends. I will say both of these decks suffer from a complete lack of diversity. Neither of them have a single, like, I don't even think, maybe in Sweet Twilight we might have a couple of older looking people, maybe. Yeah, like the Hermit was a little bit older, wasn't he? Yeah, but still not even a gray beard. So not, like this person's probably just like in their 30s or 40s. So we don't have any age diversity. We don't have any racial diversity. We don't have any ability diversity, any size diversity, none of that in either of these decks. So that is a significant thing to note. They both work well for me because I'm privileged enough that they can work for me. I can see myself in these cards. And I know it's not essential for everyone to be able to see themselves in cards, but that is actually something that is important to me. So if I were a person of color or a person of any other marginalized, you know, all that, I am actually the best served person in tarot. I am a white cis woman. So if I were anything other than that, it would be difficult for me to find tarot decks that work for me because that is something that's important to me. So that is important to note. See, this is the actual Six of Cups in this deck when there are so many that I think work as a Six of Cups, and I don't know if I would think of this as a Six of Cups. Like maybe for me this would be more of a 5. I don't know. I love this one though, the bear. This is really sweet. Like I'm not even a baby person, but those babies look squishy in the best possible ways. I think it's possible that Tarot of the Dream Enchantress is the deck that has the most children in it of any deck that I have. This one bugs me. I mean, okay, so look at the position that this chick is in. And then look at this little guy back here who is peeping on her. Think of the view that he has. I feel like it is obvious to me that we are looking at, in many cases, not just this one, in this deck, Tarot of the Dream Enchantress, we are looking at a cis man. Cis het man. Maybe not cis, but yeah, probably. Cis het man. I'm gonna go ahead and say that's probably the case. Because, like, no one crouches like that to look at themselves. No one crouches like that. And then we gotta have this guy back here. I'm thinking about, like, covering him up somehow, like maybe drawing some leaves and stuff just so you don't have to see him creeping on her, because, like, yeah. Anyway, I'm criticizing this deck, but I do think that I'm gonna work well with it at the same time. See, and this is another one that, like, how is this 9 of Cups? I'm hoping I can work through some of this stuff. Okay, here's the first one that I added pubic hair. Because there were some that, like, there was a lot more detail than I was comfortable with on a bald crotch. Not just because I'm ace, but also because I get triggered by that, because I grew up, you know, in the early 2000s was when I was kind of like coming of age. And that was the thing back then, is that you had to have a bald crotch. And it felt so infantilizing to me. Like, obviously everyone should be free to choose whatever they want to do or not do with their pubic hair. But for me, it was something that felt very pushed onto me. And that was just a very sexist time. I mean, I know all times are sexist times, but it was a particularly heavy sexist time. Just like, you know, I don't know, from like 2000 to 2010, something like that, just felt particularly oppressive. Like, I don't know, could just be because of my age at that particular time. I don't know. This was another one, the Page of Cups. I gave her some kind of blingy pubic hair, and I gave her hearts over her nipples, just for fun. Not because I don't have any problem with any of the nipples in this tarot deck. I just, for some reason, was like, since I added bling to, like, her little skirt decorations too, I was like, you know what? I'm giving her heart nipples. She's a Page of Cups. I think she would appreciate that. This deck has, like, books in both the Knave and the King of Cups, which I think is an interesting choice. Maybe, like, poetry is the kind of book that I would associate them with. Riding a seahorse. I really love this one too. Look at that little horse's face. Look at his face. It really is beautiful art, though, in Dream Enchantress. And it reminds me of a particular time. And there's a lot of, it's very beautifully done. Like, you can tell this artist, you know, has been making art for a long time. Not that that isn't the case here, but it's just, I'm looking more at this deck just because this is the new one. This is another one. I added pubic hair. This was the one that was the most kind of pornographic, I'll say, because of the positioning. But I think I did a great job with the pubic hair on this one. I don't know how this is 3 of Swords, really? Like a devil lady? Kind of, you know, languidly hanging about a tree. Again, it's like with this deck, with Sweet Twilight, of course I've worked with it longer, but also I can see the traditional meaning in the card, and then usually there's a little bit of a twist on it. Whereas with this one, well, in this case, that's not the case, because this to me looks like an internalized misogyny card. This actually kind of reminds me of the 5 of Swords from Darkwood Tarot, which is like my favorite 5 of Swords ever. This isn't a great example either, because this is one of the only ones in Sweet Twilight that I'm like, Yeah, I'm not sure where you're going with that. That's not how I see the Six of Swords at all, whereas this one kind of is. Both of these are good Seven of Swords, too. Again, it's definitely not like a huge portion of this deck, Dream Enchantress, that are the ones that are just like, I don't understand what you're doing here with the symbolism. Like, I get this. Succubus, bad dreams, Nine of Swords, got it. And I even, like, anytime you get, like, a twist on the Ten of Swords, I like it. She's slaying a dragon. It's the final blow to slaying her dragon. Like, yeah, I can get behind that for sure. I did add pubic hair to her. These both look like slightly despondent Knight of Swords, which is interesting. Both of these Queen of Swords are really fucking badass. Look at her, wow. This one kind of confuses me just because of the lizards on the King of Swords. So again, I do think that sometimes I just get the impression that maybe the artist Marco Nizzoli, is that right? Nizzoli, may just not have had like a super perfect understanding of tarot, or just a very different interpretations. Like, to say that he doesn't know what he's talking about is shitty of me because I have no idea. He might just have very different interpretations. This is kind of, I'm gonna have to put this incense out, guys. I'm like choking on it right now. Just because it's a very, very small space that I'm sitting in, and this is not Champus. This is serious shit. I can do it when I have the door open, but I don't have the door open right now. Let's just get real smoky in here, guys. Okay. Both of these are kind of confusing for Two of Pentacles. I mean, I guess this mushroomy one is a little bit easier to understand. I like both of these, particularly this one. She's kind of just like sitting proud at the top of her. I mean, this maybe could be read as an Asian woman, but I mean, that's just kind of like, maybe there's diversity in this one card. I don't know. I added pubic hair to this one too. I'm sure it's kind of obvious. I'm just letting you guys know, just because I want you to know that you're not necessarily always seeing what you're going to get if you were to purchase one of these decks. I don't think there's any nudity in Tarot of the Sweet Twilight. I don't necessarily notice, like, if there is or not, if there isn't, you know? This one, again, looks like a Six of Cups to me. I don't really understand how this is a Six of Pentacles. I don't really totally understand how this is a Six of Pentacles either. I mean, I guess we have, like, the two people, like, begging over here, so I guess... No, yeah, that makes sense. And we've got this, like, sort of, like, goddess hell situation going here. This sort of two-faced situation happening. Where they're seeing this sort of, like, more presentable side of this figure. But her true self is maybe she's not giving for the right reasons, which That's a good interpretation of the traditional Six of Pentacles, I think. This one confuses me, is the Seven Pentacles, the Sweet Twilight one. Another little, like, fairy looking creature, kind of. So I guess, like, both decks, to me, have a handful of cards that, and in this case, more than a handful, that kind of, like, the symbolism doesn't quite connect for me. I do think that I still might be suffering, though, because I still am a relatively new reader. Like, yes, I've had tarot cards, and I've read tarot cards since I was probably 14 or 15 years old, but I was pretty much just pulling out my cards, doing a reading, and consulting the guidebook very, very occasionally up until 2019 when I first, 2018 really. End of 2018 is when I started actually legit learning all the meanings of the cards. So in that sense, I kind of am still sort of a new tarot reader. So if I end up with a tarot deck that isn't pretty heavily rooted in RWS symbolism, I still do kind of suffer from, like, yeah, I can look at it. I mean, I can read pretty much any tarot deck at this point because I do know all the meanings, but it's hard for me to connect to the imagery if they aren't pretty rooted in RWS. Or if they, you know, it's like it has to be one extreme or the other for me. It has to be like either pretty numerological / Marseille pip style, like Marigold Tarot, or Triomphe della Luna, which is more of a literal Marseille, or it has to, like, the symbolism has to kind of match. Both of these are good. Ten of Pentacles, I think. Does that make sense? And that might be due to the fact that I'm still kind of a new tarot reader. Because it's only been like 3 years, really. I like it when the knights in tarot decks are riding something other than a horse. Like, I love horse imagery, but I like, you know, choosing an animal that maybe shouldn't be as big as a horse that kind of fits with the suit. She's a pretty badass Queen of Pentacles, but, like, the fact that she's wearing all red just gives me Queen of Wands energy, personally. So I don't know. It obviously, since I've only had Tarot of the Dream Enchantress for like 3 days, it remains to be seen how I'm going to work with this deck so far. But as far as, like, reviews on other aspects of the cards, like, just, you know, your standard Lo Scarabeo. The cardstock is a little, like, it's not the exact same size as Lo Scarabeo cards usually are. It's a tiny, tiny bit shorter and skinnier, which is interesting because Lo Scarabeo cards are always, like, a little bit skinnier. This is, like, the newest printing, I think. There are others that have different borders than this, but these are really nice borders because they've kind of zoomed into the artwork, I think, as opposed to older editions of the deck, which this deck would need. Like, God, I would love it if, like, Llewellyn would put out a version of Shadowscapes like this, where, you know, even just that little bit of being zoomed into the artwork, just like a 1/4 of an inch more, just having it a 1/4 of an inch bigger, and having just, like, you know, more minimalistic borders like this. And I even like this, like, little floofy situation there. Anyway, so this is not a straight up review of this deck because I haven't really worked much with it yet. But haven't even decided what I'm going to edge it. Like, usually I pick a color from the back, so I'll probably edge it in this, like, I'm not going to use teal because teal always bleeds. But I'll probably pick that purple color. Anyway, just wanted to show off my new table and my new tarot deck. I hope you're having a great weekend. Bye.